What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Rob's Gaming Table, or maybe Rob's Gaming Forest. I decided to get outside, get some real life XP, and kind of do a top 10 adventure game list, and why not do it while adventuring? To date, according to Board Game Geek, I went through the adventure category, and it looks like I've played over 60 different adventure games, some more adventure-y than others, but I basically limited to only games that I've played that were in the adventure game category on Board Game Geek. So if you're interested to see what my top 10 favorite adventure games are, stay tuned. All right, number 10 is a game called EUTHIA, Torment of Resurrection, published by DIEA Games. It's a big box fantasy themed adventure game based on the video game series Heroes of Might and Magic. You're basically progressing, leveling up, getting loot, gold, spending it, trying to earn victory points or defeat a boss. There's different scenarios. You can play co-op, competitive, solo. It's got a lot in there, a lot of replayability. Definitely one of my favorite adventure games, obviously. Just squeaked in on the list. I was originally going to leave it out of the running because the company folded and their last Kickstarter kind of went under and got canceled. So I didn't think the game was going to be available anymore and go out of print, but recently Steamforged Games has picked it up to publish it. So it will be coming back to Kickstarter soon, or GameFound or something. So you will be able to get your hands on it again, but that's number 10, EUTHIA, Torment of Resurrection. All right, number 9 is an app-driven board game, Descent, Legends of the Dark, published by Fantasy Flight Games. It is the next in the series of the Descent dungeon crawling games, except for the app kind of drives the DM side of things, and the campaign story plays out through kind of like little cutscenes. It has the card flipping mechanic that's unique to it from the other Descent games, I believe. But it's got the same dice chucking, movement, line of sight, and all that stuff. One of the other twists they added to the game was a 3D terrain using like cardboard, where you kind of craft it and put it together to make multiple floors for levels, including stairs and jumping down and traps and all that kind of stuff. It's really neat. That is number 9, Descent, Legends of the Dark by Fantasy Flight Games. It is a hot one out here today. Number 8 is the HEXPLORE series by MARIUCCI Designs. I would say specifically right now, my favorite one is the original, the Valley of the Dead King. If I had to pick, I was forced, but I do like them all. They have this kind of same foundation. You're adventuring on an exploring a map, flipping over tiles, but you can set it up kind of in your own way each time and kind of explore each one. Each one in the series has like a different boss, a different theme, some different mechanics, but they're all based on the same foundation. Comes with dry erase markers. You're writing your stats and battle math on some like dry erase boards. Very unique, very weird, strange. But I love just exploring the cards in the deck, searching for items and buying things at the shop, trying to take down the boss or survive, even just like find food and survive in those series. My new favorite might be the Domain of Mirrors and Noctis, the latest one that's delivering from Kickstarter soon. But I've only played the prototype, so I don't want to say that's the best. But I think because it's close to the original, but like I like the twists on it. But anyways, that's my number 8, the HEXPLORE series. All right, number 7 is the Sword and Sorcery series by Ares Games. You could go with either Immortal Souls to start or Ancient Chronicles. I would choose Ancient Chronicles for myself as my preferred starting point. I just think they improved on the original game in quite a few spots. Maybe not so in others, but if you're new to the series, probably check out Sword and Sorcery Immortal Souls. But it is a fantasy-themed dungeon crawler, pretty advanced, got a lot of kind of fiddly rules to it, so it's not for everybody, but I do like the Book of Secrets, the branching paths. Ancient Chronicles adds a kind of like a town mode, where you spend time points to go visit things in town, explore the story. You can get side quests, like to try to get achievements and craft things, and they added a whole bunch of stuff to kind of balance the game a little more on the difficult end for the second one. So it's kind of like Sword and Sorcery Ancient Chronicles is like kind of like a refined version of the game, kind of like a second edition. But they're both great. They're both compatible. You can use heroes in either one. But that is number 7, Sword and Sorcery series by Ares Games. All right, number 6 is Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, published by Fantasy Flight Games. This is another one of those app-driven games. This one is the one they designed before Descent, Legends of the Dark. This is more of a zoomed-out Lord of the Rings kind of adventure game. It's not a dungeon crawler per se, but there is battle map scenarios where you're kind of zoomed in, but usually you're kind of like on an overworld map, exploring, advancing the map. The app, hides all the surprises from you, keeps track of like an ever looming threat meter. One of the coolest aspects in the game, you are not rolling dice for like skill checks and tests and attacks and stuff. You are actually building a deck that's specific to your character and specific to your class that you then can upgrade over time and try to increase the successes or the abilities in that deck, because it has multi-use cards where you can prep some up and fire off abilities and, you know, try to pass tests and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just a fun game. You play through a campaign through the app, which could have branching paths, different endings, could be shorter or longer depending on the outcomes, but the app hides all that in the background from you. So it's fun to kind of play through it and kind of discover it, but you could go back and play through it to try to see if you can find other scenarios in it by, you know, making different decisions or winning or losing specific scenarios. But it has the Lord of the Rings theme all over it. I love it. That is Lord of the Rings, Journeys to Middle-earth, published by Fantasy Flight Games. All right, number 5 is Seventh Continent, published by Serious Pulp. This is a survival adventure game where you are cursed. You're going back to an island. You're playing one of many scenarios. The island is trying to kill you. It is very hard. You need to hunt for food. Otherwise, you'll run out of life, which is your deck. But the deck is also what you need to do abilities and pass tests. So you're constantly trying to push your luck or spend the right amount of cards to survive and get to the next spot to find food, while also trying to solve the puzzles and the mysteries of the island. Has like kind of the escapee room kind of puzzle stuff to it a little bit. But it is not for everybody. It is a very difficult game, but it takes a little bit. If you're willing to kind of try the game out, learn it, you're okay with failing a bunch of times, find one of the tutorial scenarios, play that first, not the recommended first scenario in the box. That one is tough and long, but we have played through it. If you want to see more of it on the channel, check out the playlist down below, and you can check out Seventh Continent, our number 5, Serious Pulp. And we're here at number 4. We have Gloomhaven, the beast, the monster, the number 1 board game currently on Board Game Geek. I just put Gloomhaven here, but if you've never played Gloomhaven before, I recommend playing Jaws of the Lion. It is a cheaper, more intro, a little bit lighter, shorter campaign game. It's a dungeon crawler on paper, but it's really kind of like an efficiency puzzle. You play cooperatively, going through a story, playing different scenarios. But Gloomhaven itself was the original hit. That is a big monster, huge expensive box, heavy, full of like 95 scenarios. You get locked out of ones, branching paths, multiple classes to unlock. It has legacy elements to it, but they removed the legacy stuff mainly in the Jaws of the Lion. But also it's a hit digital game, which I don't think I'll ever play the physical board game Gloomhaven again. I just like playing the digital version, which they also have added Jaws of the Lion to, so you can also play those scenarios. But yeah, I recommend, if you've never checked out Gloomhaven before, $50 or less, you can get Jaws of the Lion to try it out. It's not your standard dungeon crawler. It's very unique. It mixes a lot of Euro puzzly mechanics to it. It's got a hand management kind of deck building aspect to it. Very neat, very cool game, loved by a lot, but not for everybody. But of course it's fantasy themed. That is Gloomhaven by CEPHALOFAIR Games. Number 3 on my top adventure games is a card game. It is Lord of the Rings, the living card game by Fantasy Flight Games, the original cooperative LCG living card game. Of course, fantasy themed. Man, I don't know. Adventuring and fantasy themed games, they just seem to bubble up to the top of my rankings. But yeah, this one, of course, Lord of the Rings IP all over it. Some unique characters, unique stories. You're not playing, in most scenarios and cycles and stuff, you're playing through like Fantasy Flight Games' own story and that, but in the world. But they did involve some Saga box expansions, so you could play through the official books of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. But they recently re-released it in kind of like a repackaged core set with some new content put in to make it a campaign mode. But they are coming out with repackaged cycles in a better distribution model. So it's a good time to get into the game since they just kind of like relaunched it. But there's no real new stuff other than the campaign cards that they're putting in these boxes. But great game, beloved, very highly ranked on Board Game Geek. But it's just basically a game where you build your deck and you go on adventures, playing scenarios through campaigns or stories in the Lord of the Rings universe. But completely in a card game. But it is a lifestyle game. There is a lot to buy for it if you're looking for it. But again, if you're just buying the newly re-released stuff, there's not that much yet. So it's a good time to get into it. Like I said, that's Lord of the Rings, the living card game, published by Fantasy Flight Games. All right, number 2 is Mage Knight, the board game or Mage Knight Ultimate Edition, either one. I have Ultimate Edition, haven't played much of the expansion content, but played it a couple years ago on the channel a whole bunch. It's one of my favorite games. I love playing it solo, don't mind playing it 2-player, but it is an adventure game. You're exploring the world and basically upgrading cards, getting new cards, building your deck. But every turn there's this puzzle to what is in your hand, and you have multi-use cards. So you're trying to decide how many cards to put into which action. I love that aspect of it. But I do love the efficiency puzzle of it. It can lead to lots of analysis paralysis, but it is a big beast of a game. Hard to learn, not the best rulebook system, but if you can take the time to learn it, there's lots of cool videos out there teaching how the aspects of how to play it. It is a difficult game to learn, but it is very deep, very strategic, highly replayable, very addictive once you get going. But it is a beast of an adventure game. That is Mage Knight, the board game by WIZKIDS Games. All right, so we made it to number 1. The number 1 adventure game on my list is Too Many Bones, published by Chip Theory Games. These guys make the craziest, complex, kind of overproduced games. I love them. They're always deep, rich, but Too Many Bones is their most successful game. It's a fantasy-themed adventure game. It's got some tactical combat, loot cards you play, dice that you roll. You kind of build your character and unlock different dice and stats to kind of basically be rolling a mitt full of dice by the end of the game, trying to take down a tyrant. You're like little gearlocks, kind of like their version of hobbits, trying to build up and level up as you go through each day of your adventure. It's cooperative. You can play it true solo. It can be difficult, but there is varying difficulty levels. We played it a lot on the channel. There's tons of videos. Check the playlist down in the video description. But this is my favorite adventure game. Love playing it with my game group. Love playing it solo. It's a beast. It's a beast. Very expensive. It can be considered overproduced because it has neoprene mats instead of board game boards, instead of cardboard. There's no cardboard in the game. It is PVC plastic for cards. The dice are premium and custom. Like I said, neoprene for days. It uses weighted poker chips instead of like minis or standees. That's kind of their thing. That's why they're called Chip Theory Games. All their games kind of contain poker chips as your characters with stats on them and abilities and stuff. Pretty big game, pretty complex game, but really fun, but can be deep and expensive if you'd want to get all the expansion stuff to add a ton of variability and variety to the game. But that is my number 1 adventure game, Too Many Bones by Chip Theory Games. All right, that's my top 10 adventure board games. Was there a game missing on the list? What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe it didn't make my list high enough. Maybe it's something I've never played. I'm always looking for new ones. If you're looking for playthroughs or more information of any of these games, I've included playlist links down in the video description so you can watch us play these games, explain these games, see how they work. And we'll probably play a bunch of these games in the future. So make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss future playthroughs, and you can join us in the live chat. Thank you to our Patreons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. I appreciate you guys more than you know. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, you know I've survived and got out of this forest and was able to post a video, or somebody found my camera and posted it for me. Either way, thank you for watching. I'm Rob. This is Rob's Gaming Table, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.